What's up, Remote Job fam? Jordan Carroll, aka the Remote Job Coach, here live with you today to talk about ChatGPT and how to create an incredible resume using this tool. Now, this AI technology is going to help us do three things today. The first one is to create a standard shell resume out of thin air, out of scratch. Number two would be to optimize that resume or any existing resumes that you currently have. And number three would be to customizing resumes for very specific job descriptions. So if any of those things interest you, make sure you stay to the end. There's going to be a lot of little tips and tricks and perspectives that I'm going to be able to provide along the way. Now, if you don't know what ChatGPT is, if you've been living under a rock for a while, I'm going to leave a video up here that explains what ChatGPT is. I don't want to go into that during this particular video because I want this to be about going right in to the deep dive and going into the tutorial. I'm also going to have other tutorials on ChatGPT and job seeking that are going to be about LinkedIn, going to be about cover letters, going to be about all sorts of things. So if you like this, make sure that you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share it with your friends, and look out for those other tutorials as well. So I'm going to share my screen here, as you can see, and we're going to go right in. So the first most important thing about ChatGPT I want to highlight before we get started is that ChatGPT and the output that it gives you, the things that it provides for you, are only as good as the inputs, so the things that you give it. So one of the most important things you do is that you teach ChatGPT about you. You give it a lot of information up front. You spend 80% of the time just getting the right information, the right prompts to ChatGPT, and then it will give you the stuff that you're looking for. In conjunction with that, if you look in the description, there will be, like, all the prompts and the things that are talked about in this video today will be below in a downloadable format. So you will have access to that as well for free from this video. So make sure you check that out at some point. Now, let's start with what ChatGPT needs in order to create a resume for you. And this is something that I had asked ChatGPT. I said, you know, what are the things that you need to create a perfect resume? And what it told me was, I need a professional experience, which is the list of these, job roles, responsibilities, achievements. I need an educational background, I need skills, and I need this professional objective or summary, as well as contact information. So right off the bat, those are the minimal things that you need to give it to be able to generate what I would consider kind of a standard resume for yourself. So do this once. Go in and write out all of these things in either a story format, or you can even segment them out with different headlines. I would also add any specific job or industry targets that you have so that it can tailor that language for you. I would add any particular relevant info about your background or your qualifications that aren't included, and any other things. And as you go along, as you give it this information, again, it's going to give you things, and then you can tell it, hey, can you add this? Hey, can you subtract this? So you become an editor for AI. AI does not become the replacement for you. You just become a really good editor and like a quarterback. So you're just looking at running the plays. Okay, so this is the information that we need. And for this particular exercise, what I did was I took this information that it's asking for, and I said, can you just create a person like that has and include these things, right? So I'm kind of reverse engineering this fake person named Sarah Johnson. So then it gave me this information about who Sarah Johnson is. So then what I did was I went into a different tab of ChatGPT and I said, here's some information about me. Can you please create a perfect resume from this, right? And then I pasted the information. And so this is what it gave me. It gave me Sarah Johnson, 123 Main Street, all these different things. It gave me a summary that kind of went along with the things that I gave it. It gave the education, the certifications, the skills, the experience, all this in order here. Now, on first glance, what's really cool about this is that it's giving me a resume off the bat, right? Like it's such a cool concept that I can just say, hey, do this, and now it gives me this. But the issue is that this is not, as a career coach, as someone who's looked at thousands of resumes, as someone who helps people on a weekly basis with their resumes, this is not a good formatted resume. And what I mean by that is the order in which the information is presented is not great. Some of the details are missing. It's not great. It's a start. And that's really where ChatGPT can be helpful for you, is ideation, starting things. If you're feeling stuck, like just giving you ideas, things like that are reasons why it's really great. A template that I like for a resume looks something more like this, where we have at the very top a highlight section. Now, why do we have a highlight section? A highlight section basically includes what might be considered a professional summary statement, but it also includes some keywords and some skills, and then it also includes some metrics and numbers and achievements as well as awards right at the top of the resume. And we include the role name and exactly what it is that you are wanting to work as, like that job title. Now, the reason we do that is if someone's looking at your resume, if you imagine a hiring manager or recruiter look at your resume, what we want to do is take anything that's in this experience, especially if it's like way down here in the second or third role in like the second or third bullet point. Let's say you have a really, really great bullet point down there with a nice metric and a nice example of something that you've done. We don't want it to get lost down there. We want to bring it right to the top so it's very easy to find it. So again, ChatGPT is going to give me a resume, but I want it in this format. So what I did was I went in and said, hey, that's great, thank you, but can you replace the current resume format with this one below and feature some of the most important information from my experience at the top in the marketing director highlights section for the hiring managers and recruiters to see right away. Please add in appropriate keywords and accomplishments based on the information I've given you. Then I give it this format. And now it's going to give me a marketing director highlight section, and it's going to give me those individual bullet points that I asked for, right? So this is a much cleaner thing that I can now take and copy and paste directly in here, right? Again, I'm looking at this statement right here, and this is a little bit long. Like, I'd probably make this more concise. So I might even ask it, hey, on that first section, can you make that shorter? Can you make it more concise? There's just tinkering and editing that you're going to have to constantly do based on what the AI knows about you and then based on what you're giving it. So you don't stop here. You end up using this as a reference point to get to finally eventually get to that perfect or ideal resume for yourself, right? So as I go down, you also notice that there's really not much in the bullet points. Like, it's kind of guessing with some of this, and it's kind of just giving me certain things saying, hey, this might fit in here, this might be something you've done, and it doesn't have like the company, so we got to go in there and we still have to add certain things. Now, the two ways to do that are you can tell ChatGPT, hey, in the second role, this is the company I work for and I work from these dates, and then it will plug that in for you. But you might as well just plug that in for yourself, because it's going to take longer for you to tell it that than it is to put it in here, unless you take the time up front to just write a big summary or take things from your old resume and just write out a big paragraph. So that's why I really recommend keeping a Google Drive of different prompts that work for you with ChatGPT. And just the big one should be all of your experience and all the things that you've done in this format at the top, like we talked about, right? It was in here. Having professional experience, educational background, skills, and some sort of summary. So having that can be super powerful. Okay, now, again, I mentioned that there wasn't a ton as far as the meat in the bullet points. So as I went down, I was like, okay, well, can you add some additional bullet points into my experience and add more metrics? Because metrics and quantifying what you've done in certain roles and in certain tasks is so much more important than the tasks themselves. So we really want to take that time to get some examples of some metrics. Now what it gave me were a bunch of metrics, which is great. And these are just ideas, right? Like, I may not have done these things, but what I can do is I can copy and paste them into these experience areas. And then I can look and be like, okay, well, did I develop a content marketing strategy? Maybe it didn't involve this increase in traffic, but maybe I can quantify it at 10%, or maybe I can talk about it in this way. So you're using these as, again, reference points and feedback loops to create your own resume. And that's the beauty, is that you don't have to recreate the wheel. You don't have to write things yourself. They're given to you in a way that's easy to edit and put directly into the resume. So again, what we're creating here is what's called a shell resume. So every single role that you are going after, every single individual role with this person, Sarah, it's going to be like a marketing director role, but maybe there's like also a project management role that she would go for. Like, every single very distinct role is going to have a different standard shell resume. From those resumes, what you're going to end up doing is customizing them for every single time that you're going to apply to a specific job. So it's very important that, again, like, you have that marketing director resume that has all the important stuff that you've done from a marketing perspective in here right at the top in this highlight section, and then throughout you're focused more on the marketing rather than the project management, for instance. So that's going to change every single time, but right now we're just focused on that initial one. So what I said was for it to take out the bullet points in the experience section that were also in the highlights, because what I noticed was it was giving me some of the same stuff up here, like this one. It was also giving it down here. And we don't want to repeat those. What you bring up into the highlights ends up staying in the highlights, and then you take that out of the actual experience bullet point below. So again, we're just training it, we're teaching it what we want, what we don't want, and this thing is going to get better with time. So you got to be somewhat patient with it, but just continue to work at it in the way that makes most sense for you. So then they fixed that part, but it ended up like they added more bullet points here, they added some other things down here, and it's really up to you to kind of go through and figure out what's relevant and what's not, right? Another way you can use ChatGPT for resume is sourcing bullet point ideas in general, right? So I just wanted to show some of these other skills, especially when you're making that initial shell resume. You might think to your head, okay, well, what do marketing directors do? And this is going to take information from various different, it's almost going to look like it's from various different job descriptions, which is great. So I said, can you please write 10 additional short summary bullet points that might be used for a marketing director who is especially looking to highlight project management experience and also wants to feature remote work skills. So again, these prompts are very specific, and because of that, I'm getting some like really, really good stuff that also matches a lot of the stuff that we had before. So now it's going to give me these 10 bullet points. I might use these, I might copy these in and be like, oh man, like that's a great bullet point about mentoring and training. I have some experience like that. I have some experience with relationships with stakeholders, so I'm going to include that. So you're going to be using this to see, hey, which of these bullets actually kind of sound like you, and then take the information from this bullet, combine it with your experience and your metrics, and make it your own, okay? Just another prompt here was write 3 resume achievements for a marketing director using the following keywords: offerings, positioning, assets, personas. So say that there are a couple very, very specific keywords you want to be incorporated in these bullet points. You can tell it that, right? Now it's going to give you some achievements and things that you can use for that. So again, we're just constantly figuring out interesting ways to use this in ways that are going to make sense for us, right? And then maybe you're in a position where the design and executed target marketing campaigns, or the way that they say something, it's like, I want to say it a little bit differently. So I said, what are some additional action verbs I can use to describe the achievement about designing and executing targeted marketing campaigns? And now they're going to give me a bunch of different action words. So this becomes like a pseudo Google type of resource where you don't have to start a whole new search every time. It builds off of what you've told it before and can continue to provide value as you go along with it and as you give it more information. And then I said, hey, can you make the third bullet point more simple and to the point? So for those of you who, many job seekers, like I work with so many job seekers who have trouble being too long-winded, whether that be writing or in the way that they answer interview questions. And my recommendation is take a look at something like this where you can just put your bullet point in there and say, hey, make this more simple. And then boom, it's making it a lot more simple. And now let's talk about, we talked a little bit about optimizing current resumes. We talked about creating that initial shell resume. There's so many different ways you can, kind of work around with this thing and play around. But now we're gonna look at a specific job description. Now this job description is for a director of marketing at a company called Graphite, who is a fully remote company, work from anywhere organization. This is the job description. I found this on FlexJobs, and there's a lot of different requirements and things in here that were great for us to be able to use as an input, right? So I said, hi ChatGPT. It's like I talk to ChatGPT like it's a person to make myself feel a little bit more sane. I also say please a lot to ChatGPT. I don't know if that's I want it to be a human or what, but I was like, hi ChatGPT, I'm going to give you a job description of a role I'm interested in. Based on the information provided, can you help me customize my resume? And it says, of course, I'd be happy to do this. Some of the time I like to separate my requests. So I'll have instead of giving it one big request where I give them the job description and I ask them to do this, I kind of prime it first so that then it knows what it's looking for. And sometimes that can be helpful because ChatGPT tends to time out. Right now I'm still on the free version. I imagine there's probably a paid version coming in the very near future, maybe $20 a month, maybe $40 a month, whatever it's going to end up being. And for me, it's like the current version, if I give it too much, since it's kind of like in this first stage, like sometimes it will just be too much for it to handle. It'll go really slow or it will time out. So doing it in 2 phases, where then now I give them the job description. I also gave them another challenging prompt. I was like, please recreate the resume we did above, but incorporate exact keywords and phrases from the job description by replacing similar words that I have in our previous version. In addition, please combine phrases and important requirements into cohesive bullet points in my experience and highlights so that I have customized version of a resume that will impress a hiring manager. This is way too much. like re-looking back, I wanted to teach you about what I'm learning as I'm going along, because I think sometimes the more simple the request is, the easier, or how much, like if you're giving it less at a time, it can be more helpful, because I ended up giving them this as well as the job description from this job. And they ended up giving me a resume that's now in the old format, and it's really just kind of focused on this job description. It's not really combining with my stuff, because if you can see here, it's like managed Graphite's digital presence. Like if I'm applying for a job at Graphite, I'm not putting this in my particular stuff. So I think it kind of misunderstood what I was saying, or did it wrong, and it messed up the format. So then I said, can you please put it in this format while maintaining the customization? And all of a sudden now we have a data analyst role. So things got kind of weird. And again, this is like where you as the human are directing AI. You are the one in the control, the quarterback seat, driving the car. So you got to be aware of editing and like rechecking every single thing. So I was like, wait, I'm confused. Why did you make one about a data analyst? We're making it about a marketing director. And now it re-goes and makes it about marketing director. But I think we pretty much lost some of the other stuff that was important, right? So just some things to note, giving it little chunks at a time may be better than giving it bigger things. That's what I've noticed, at least. So a way to do this in customizing your resume is basically what I did from there. I was like, hey, I'm going to give you a bullet point of my experience, and then I'm going to give you a bullet point from the job. Then can you combine them into one bullet point, basically? Of course, ChatGPT doesn't know how to say no, so they said yes. It said yes, and then I said, okay, here's my experience bullet point: increase website traffic. And then I looked in here in this, and I tried to find 2 that would align with that. One of them was leading the digital presence of SEO, content, email, and social. And then the other one was this one, defining and executing a world-class content strategy. So now that I took those bullets out, and this is what I want you to take away if you're a job seeker, is just go bullet by bullet. Because I gave them 2 bullets. I said, here are 2 different bullets that I want you to combine with mine. And then it gave me this one, which is good. It's actually a good bullet point. It's just really long. And it ends up being a run-on sentence. Like, it did a good job of this, but what I would do next time is I would only do one at a time. Like, I would take 1 bullet from here, and then I would take 1 bullet from my achievements and my experience, and then I would ask them to combine the 2 rather than combining 3 total ones, right? So again, it kind of goes back to the simplicity, the view of simplicity, giving it less chunks at a time so that it can handle that. And then as I was telling it to make it more concise, then it started using kind of weird language like now ready to do this. And I said, hey, instead of saying that, please say it as I've already done it. And it ended up with this one, which ended up still just being too long. So just some food for thought there. Okay, let's continue with a little bit more. So along with that, there are different technical skills that are obviously required for a marketing director position. I'm going to just plug my battery in. Give me 1 second so that I don't lose you here. That would be a bummer. I actually already had to refilm this over once because the other software I was using ended up making my video like unwatchable. So now what I want to show you is just from another perspective. Another thing you can do with resumes is you can ask more general questions to ChatGPT about roles, right? So say you're in a marketing director position, you're going for marketing director positions, you can say, what are some technical skills required? You can get all these great answers, and this is going to give you a sense of like what needs to be on the resume, what you might need to get more of if you don't have, and then it gives you examples of actual tools that you can go and practice and try if you haven't heard of them or haven't used them before, which I thought was great. And then I said, what are the soft skills required for this type of position, a marketing director? And they gave me all these, leadership, communication, strategic thinking. So these are other ways to add like skills into your resume that maybe aren't there, and ways to get ideas of what it is that you can focus on, especially in a transferable position, right? Like, let's say that you haven't been a marketing director before. There are probably some of these more transferable skills that you have done, or transferable things that would help to highlight. And then what I did was I took, again, this whole job description here, and I said, what are the soft and hard skills associated with this job description? And now I go down and I get to see exactly what those are. And they put it in like parentheses, like the years needed, which I thought was really cool. So this is just a great way to segment and like really break down job descriptions so that you can customize your resume after. And again, I would go kind of bullet by bullet. I would go in here, I'd find a bullet that makes a lot of sense, and I'd say combine it with this bullet on my resume and use that, and then use some of this other data here for like hard skills and soft skills, things like that. So the next part is about cover letters, and I'm going to cover that in a different tutorial. So I hope that this one was enjoyable about a resume, and make sure you watch the rest of the playlist going forward. See ya in the next one.